welcome everyone. Really excited today because we have a very, very special guest. And I am Mansi Zaveri, the founder of Kidsstoppress.com, but more importantly, a mom of two and a bona fide bookworm. And I'm very excited because it's my pleasure to welcome someone who's, just before the interview, we had a child just get a little bit of a glimpse of him, and her eyes went twinkling away. So that's his introduction. We have with us Jeff Kinney, who's the author of The Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and of course, he's here in India, in Mumbai, and we're very excited to be shooting this at the Museum of Solution. You've spoken about your creative writing process. Break that down for us.
So I use this process called systematic inventive thinking, which I didn't create myself.
Yeah.
It was created by an Israeli team. And the idea behind it is like this. I'll break it down for you. Is that, let's say you have a pair of glasses.
Yeah.
The first thing you do is you say, okay, what are the parts of the glasses? I would say frames and lenses, that's it.
Yeah.
And then the first tool that you use is subtraction. So you say, if I took away the lenses, what do I have? Well, I have glasses without frames. Could anybody really use that? And you'd say, well, there's one particular type of person that could use that, is an NBA sports star, like a basketball player in the US. They love fashion, and so they like to wear these glasses that make them look fashionable, but they don't really need them.
Yeah.
So they take the lenses out. So that's somebody who could use them. And if you took away the frames, you could say, well, now I have lenses. How could I use those? Well, if you shrunk them down, you would have contact lenses. So this is how I develop all of my humor in the books, is that I take a thing, like an airplane, if I'm writing about a travel, and I list the components, wings, pilot, seat, everything. And then I start to subtract. And when I subtract, I start to see where the humor is. And so I write all of my jokes in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books using systematic inventive thinking now, which is why I know I'll never run out of ideas, is because I can always use these tools to kind of jumpstart the creativity.
What do you consider as failure?
Getting a rejection letter from a cartooning syndicate saying we're not interested. I mean, it was as much of a failure as you could get, because I didn't get any encouragement from them. Nobody said, hey, maybe if you change this, it was just no thank you. And so that was, it was hard. That was 3 straight years of just getting rejection letters.
What do you tell yourself when you're getting rejected day in, day out?
Eventually I decided I needed to find another way. And I needed to acknowledge that the world was changing. So in my case, I was trying to become a newspaper cartoonist. But in every major US city, cities that had 2 or 3 newspapers went down to just 1. So the opportunities got a lot more limited, and the cartooning pages got smaller. So I said, I need to forge a new path and go somewhere that I haven't thought about going before.
Right. But tell me, and I want you to say this out to all the children, right? Because sometimes when the chips are low, you know that this is not the end of the world. But in that moment, you just feel, this is it. I'm finished. I'm a failure. What will you say to kids that time, teens, young adults, that life's not over? It's just momentary.
Well, there's this book called Outliers by
Yes.
Malcolm Gladwell.
Yes.
And he talks about how to become an expert at something, you need about 10 years. And I know the book is controversial for some reasons, but I really do believe that you can become an expert at something if you are willing to work for it. And I think a lot of people can get really good at something if they put in the time, but there aren't many people who are willing to do that in that way. So I think there is always a pathway for somebody who wants to get really good at something.
Right. You've said in your interviews that you've traveled to many countries, and this book is your passport to the world. How do you incorporate your learnings from your travel experiences into your writing?
I feel like every time I go to a new country, I sort of level up as a person. I mean, I'm getting to go to, I never would have come to India, or I wouldn't have likely come to India, or Turkey, or Brazil, or all these places I've been, if not for the books. So the books really helped me to understand the shared humanity that we have. My books are about childhood, and the things that happened to Greg happened to a lot of kids all over the world. So I'm really grateful for that, because I've really gotten to I've gotten to broaden my horizons because of these books.
A room full of 2,000 children, who are the hardest ones to please, by the way.
Yeah.
When you see a room full of 2,000 children, do you go back to the 25-year-old Greg who had faced a lot of rejection and say, damn, I can fill a room today?
Yeah, I never take that for granted. And in fact, in the US, I just did a tour where every night we had 1,500 people or 2,000 or 500, whatever the number is. I never take it for granted, especially because my books came out in 2007, 16 years ago. And now there's a new generation of kids who are
Yes.
reading them, so I never take that for granted.
How do you stay updated with the kids?
I don't even try, really, honestly, because if you do, if you're an adult trying to act like the kids, it's just going to be a problem. So I actually keep my books really old-fashioned. So the books could have been relevant 20 years ago, or they could be relevant in 20 years. I try to keep them very generic.
What's the secret sauce to keeping them relevant?
I don't know. Maybe they're irrelevant. You know, if I was being honest about a kid's experience in middle school, Greg would have his face in his phone all the time.
Yeah.
And that would be a boring book.
Yeah.
So in a way, I have to be a little bit anachronistic and tell a different type of story.
I can guarantee, guys, that he is not taking his success for granted, because I cannot believe I'm sitting and interviewing here someone who fills spaces with an audience size of 2,000 plus each time that he's here. And he's still so humble and modest that he actually said, go along, ask me whatever you want.
Sure.
And it's incredible. But a lot of parents struggle to get their kids to read today.
Yeah.
What will you tell them, and what's the right? Like, sometimes they struggle with a genre of book, sometimes it's about just getting them to sit and read.
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
I think that the key is to, first of all, to model reading for your kids. Is if you read, then it will make them more likely to read. But I think the other thing is to really teach them to treasure books. Take them to a bookstore. If you have the means, if you have the money, to say to your kids, pick out a book that you want. When a kid picks out a book for themselves, it gives them a feeling of agency. It gives them a feeling of power. And it might not be a book that you would
Yeah.
choose for them. It might be a book about Pokemon or sharks or something that you're not interested in, but
Yeah.
but that might be the key to unlock a lifelong passion for reading.
Interesting. You've also inspired so many children, even though they're not great artists, to pick up the pen and paper and draw characters. And that's the success of your book. And how does that feel to inspire so many children to just start cartooning and drawing?
Yeah, I think if a kid looks at my book, they say, hey, if that guy could do it, I know I can. I really honestly think that I'm much less talented than almost anybody who's ever picked up the pen to draw.
Yeah.
And luckily, the talent wasn't a necessary component of success. But I think that my comics are sort of accessible, and so that helps inspire kids to pick up the pen and try it themselves.
Kids today, with the amount of screens, we see so many children being constantly distracted with gadgets, games. What helped you focus, Jeff, and what made you say, this is what I need to do, this is what I'm going to do, and get the job done?
Yeah, I don't think I have any life lessons there because I still have attention deficit disorder. And if I'm writing on a device that has internet connectivity, I'll just keep bouncing to read the news and sports and entertainment, et cetera, et cetera. So I haven't cracked that myself, and I can't pretend to really know the answer to that. I did try something this time around. I got this device that's not connected to the internet. It's called the Remarkable, and it just only allowed me to type. And maybe that helped a little bit this time around.
Right. With various forms of entertainment competing for attention today, why do you believe books and reading will continue to be relevant for our generations to come?
I think that storytelling is what's relevant. I think that storytelling in all forms, in video games, in books and magazines, in TikTok videos, good storytelling always wins the day and always changes the medium in which it's used.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the future of reading is. I really don't. But I do see some encouraging things. Like, for example, my son, my older son, he got swallowed by the TikTok hole in a way. He got pulled in by the gravitational pull of it. But now when he's interested in something, when he learns about an anime that he likes or something, he'll read a whole article about it, or he'll go buy the original source material.
Right.
So I think that those things have a tendency to kind of sort of tease your interest, and then it inspires you to look a little bit deeper.
Interesting. You own a bookstore in Massachusetts.
Yes.
What does it take to get a child to drop their screens and head out to a bookstore or a library?
I think it takes first their parents valuing the experience. So every kid that comes to my bookstore came there because their parent brought them.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, this beautiful space that we're in right here at the museum treats books with reverence.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of libraries across the world, you know, they don't have the funds to treat books with reverence in the way that they're lit, the way that they're displayed,
Yeah.
the newness of the books. So bookstores can do that. And then there are some libraries who know how to make their money go further. But I think what we're telling people in this space is that books are sacred, that books are
Yeah.
special,
Yeah.
and they deserve to be cherished. And when we use that as a message, it helps kids to be really inspired to read.
Right. What's the feedback your sons have given you about the books that you read?
My kids grew up liking the books in the way that other kids like them, but they
Yeah.
weren't like passionate diehard fans.
Yeah. Does that hurt?
Not really. For me, I was just their dad. And
Yeah.
in fact, I live in a town called Plainville, Massachusetts, which sounds kind of funny.
Yeah.
And it really is. It's a weird name. It means like Boringville or Nothingville. And it really, it's a small place to have raised the kids. We didn't want to go Hollywood or even move to Boston or to a bigger city because we wanted the kids to have a really regular life, and they did. They grew up as normal as can be, and I think that's going to serve them well later on.
Right. Do they know and can they comprehend that their dad is such an accomplished author and what it means to be on the Times list?
I don't know if they care that much, but what's funny is all throughout their elementary years and their high school years, people didn't care. Maybe they cared a little, but not that much. And then when they got to college, each one of them got like a little bit famous on campus. People knew who they were. It was like, oh, there's the, there's the kid whose dad writes Wimpy Kid. And I think that was the first time that it kind of, the
Hit
scope
them.
of it dawned on them. Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned about your creative process where you go to a cemetery, you start writing, you start thinking, what do I want to share with the world today? Tell us a little bit more about that process. How do you manage to write book after book, not fearing whether this is going to do well, not do well? Like, how does it not stop you creatively to worry
Yeah.
about success or failure?
I think I always operate in a place of fear, actually. I'm always afraid that my books are going to stop being popular, because I love this. The fact that I'm here with you, maybe 5 years from now I won't get an invitation to Mumbai, or, so I want to sustain that.
Yeah.
I know part of it's out of my control, like you can't do something that's popular forever.
Yeah.
But I do strive to write something.
You've done it for a really long time.
I have, right?
Right. Somebody asked Shah Rukh Khan, do you know who Shah Rukh Khan is? He's like this huge Bollywood star.
Yes.
And they asked him the exact same question.
Yeah.
And his answer was just the same.
Really?
He said, I wake up every single day to work hard to ensure that this success does not go away because I worked very hard for this.
Sure.
And just like you said that, it's in the now and I don't know how long it's going to last, but I want to work hard for it to sustain it today. So
Yeah.
that's brilliantly said.
Yeah, I think in a way it's sort of like a professional athlete, is that they have a lifespan
Yeah.
in a way. No matter how hard Lionel Messi
Yes.
works, one day his career will be over, and that's out of his control.
Yeah.
That's because of his body, that's because of the competition, his age, etc. In my case, as a children's author, I have a little bit more control, but still people's appetites might change, kids might stop reading these types of books, so I don't have that much control, and I don't know how to survive after this.
Yeah.
I don't know what that next phase of my life is going to be.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit fearful of that.
The decision to make Diary of a Wimpy Kid into a movie, did you fear that it will lose its essence? Because many book to movie adaptations haven't been, haven't translated in the best forms.
Yeah, I did. I was really nervous about that. And in fact, that's always a challenge of the adaptation, because when a kid reads a book, they fill in the blanks with their imagination. When you commit it to celluloid or to digital print, it sort of solidifies it. It cements the vision. It takes the imagination away. And so I think that there are probably lots of kids who watch the movies that are like, that didn't come out the way that I thought it would. But when cinema is at its best, I think it's very additive. And so, for example, I just released Cabin Fever, which is a Christmas story. And I think that story was really additive. I think it brought a lot of heart to the story that wasn't in the original. And that's what a movie's supposed to do, is to tell an emotional story.
Right. Also, how do you detach yourself as a writer from every book that you've written to go on to the next one?
Oh, I'm very forgetful. Like, if you ask me what happened 2 books ago, I have no idea. I can't remember.
That's how detached he
That's
is.
how detached. I don't know if it's my age or if I'm just moving too fast forward, but I can't really remember what I've written, and I just keep going forward. In fact, Bob Dylan had a movie that he had a documentary called Never Look Back, and I don't really know what his message was with that statement, but that's the best way to move forward as an artist, is to not keep going back and litigating your old work.
Okay, that's a lot of that's great learning for an amateur author.
Yeah.
Tell us about No Brainer, and what can the Diary of a Wimpy Kid fans expect from this one?
For No Brainer, I really wanted to go back to school. It's been a while since I've had Greg in a school setting, and I really wanted to have the school as the main character. And in the educational world, we have lots of challenges. We have budget cuts, and we have underperformance on tests, and too much pressure on students, and teachers who are jaded. These are things I'm sure you have here in India.
Yes.
We have it in the US. And so I'm really trying to satirize that. It's my first book that's a real satire, which is a little bit different in tone than my other books, but it was fun to do it.
Okay. We asked a few kids to ask you questions.
Great.
Let's see what they've come up with.
All right.
My mom says comic books don't help in improving your vocabulary, and I should read more serious books.
Yeah.
What should I tell my mom?
I think all types of reading is good, and I think that when you hand a kid a book that's too elevated, it will make the kid say, reading isn't for me.
Yeah.
I think it's important that kids read at their level, and sometimes it's good to read a book that's kind of casual, as a no-brainer, like where, it's just for entertainment. And then sometimes it's important to challenge yourself. So you're both right.
Okay. What's next for Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Jeff and Greg?
I have no idea. As soon as I get back home, I'm going to start thinking about that. But I think a summer story, I'm ready for another summer story. I'd like to have Greg visit a city with his family. I think that would be really interesting. So I'm thinking of all sorts of different things.
Are you constantly thinking of what next? Do you feel like you're on a hamster wheel and you need to perform each time?
Yes. And what's funny is, with my attention deficit disorder, I'm literally thinking about it right now, trying to think, which way should I go with this?
Okay. Your most favorite book when creating from the series is?
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me.
No, I'm going to ask you.
You have to put a question mark at the end of it so I understand it's a question. No, I'm kidding. It's my favorite one in the series right now is No Brainer. I think it honestly is one of the better books. And then I'll always like the first one because it was the first one.
Right. I love snacking when going my homework or studying for exams. What's your favorite writing snack? These are all questions from the kids.
Okay, great. I forgot that there are questions from the kids. I like double stuffed Oreos. Do you have those?
Guys, this interview is forbidden. He's saying all the wrong things. Double stuffed Oreos. The moms are going to hate it.
No, I love bananas and grapes. Those really keep
well
me going.
said. He flipped like in no
Right,
time.
yeah, right.
Okay, on a serious note, what do you eat? What do you snack on when you write?
Yeah, really, double stuffed Oreos, Skittles, the bad stuff, salty snacks, sugar, salt, fat. I'll go for that.
Okay. Your embarrassing middle school incident.
My embarrassing middle school incident, when I was a kid, just like Greg, when I was on the swim team, the first thing, I didn't want to jump in the cold pool with everybody else, so I would tell my swim coach I needed to use the restroom. So I'd go in there and I'd hide for the whole practice. I'd sit on the toilet and I'd be shivering, and then I'd wait till practice was just about over, and then I'd jump in the pool at the very end, and that's both my most embarrassing thing and how Greg Heffley was born.
Okay. Who's your favorite character from the series?
I like Rowley because he likes being a kid, and he's a pure kid, and I think a lot of kids should stay kids longer.
I agree.
Yeah.
If you were not a cartoonist and an author, what would you have been?
Computer programmer, but there's a dash in between, so one word.
Okay. An alternate title for Diary of a Wimpy Kid would be?
All these have to be one word?
No, you can go on for more.
It would just be Greg Heffley's Journal, grade 7. That's what it would be, because that was the original.
Okay. What was the first title you came up before writing Diary of a Wimpy Kid?
It really was Diary of a Wimpy Kid from the beginning.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. 5 books every child must read.
Ooh, 5 books. See, I never could have done this in one word. 5 books every child must read. The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. The Very Hungry Caterpillar as a young reader. I'm going to go with, I liked a book called Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, which was by Judy Blume, an American writer. I like The Hobbit. And then I'm going to go with Chronicles of Narnia, the first one. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Your favorite author back when you were a child, and of course one now?
Judy Blume, and one now. I like all nonfiction. I only read political memoirs now.
Okay. One thing you want to change, improve about children's literary scenario today?
Make it more visual, I think.
Yeah.
I think that we ask kids to go from these big colorful picture books to gray text and chapter books, and we need something in between.
100%. 5 things that make Greg a lovable character.
5 things. I would say he's honest. He's very flawed. He's active. I think that he's relatable, and he's got 3 hairs.
Okay. Your favorite book to movie adaptation other than Diary of a Wimpy Kid?
Oh boy, The Revenant, which is a grown-up movie, but it was a good one.
Okay. Ebook or audiobook, which one do you prefer?
Audiobook for sure.
Okay. How much time do you spend on social media every day?
Ooh, probably about an hour and a half each day. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe more.
I thought it'd probably be 0.
Yeah, I wish it was 0. Yeah, I wish it was.
Okay. One way in which you're similar to Greg, and one way in which you're different.
I'm similar in almost all ways. A way that I'm different. I think my horizons are broader than Greg's. He's very myopic.
Okay. The best feedback and most cherished feedback you've ever received?
The best feedback I ever got was from a kid who was autistic and read my books and felt like he could understand Greg because the pictures gave him that constant feedback to tell him how Greg was feeling. That was really important for that kid, and I'm sure there's other kids like him.
I'm sure. One moment where you felt like, this is it, I've arrived.
Mm-hmm. I got on the New York Times bestseller list about 2 weeks after my book came out, and that was this big moment for me. And that's my wife and I were jumping up and down on my kid's bed, and that was really cool. And
I wish you have a video of that. That'll be amazing.
Yeah, it would be.
5 books with great illustrations that you would recommend.
Oh boy, you gave me time too. I'm going to go with Sean Tan's The Arrival. I'll go with Shel Silverstein, A Light in the Attic. First Time for Everything by Dan Santat. I'm going to go with Max in the Midnights, a cartoon book by Lincoln Peirce. And I'll go with Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak.
5 titles from the Diary of a Wimpy Kid that are your top favorites.
My top favorites, I really like the first book. I like The Long Haul. I like Cabin Fever. I like Diaper Overload, which is a rude title, I know. And then I like No Brainer.
Okay. 3 tips for parents who want to raise readers.
Take them to the bookstore, take them to the library, and then make both a habit.
3 books that teenagers must read.
The teenagers must read. There's a famous book in the U.S. called Catcher in the Rye, which I really liked. It's become very controversial.
Okay.
Let's see, another book that teenagers should read.
Because
I'm,
really,
I'm
that's when
drawing
the-
blanks.
That's when the reading just
Yes,
slumps.
that's right. That's when, because I'm thinking about like what teachers
Yes,
make you read.
yes, yes.
But some of those books, like Catcher in the Rye, are very formative books. So I have to come back to that one. too.
Okay. 3 common mistakes that parents make while raising readers.
I think that sometimes as parents that we hand books to our kids that we enjoyed as kids.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're, they don't line up or they don't match the times and kids are like, I don't really like this. I don't like what you like. So that's the first mistake. I'd say another is not modeling reading. And another is not carving out reading time like in the day, like for example, after dinner, that reading is a priority.
Right, interesting. I can't believe we've spent an incredible amount of time finishing this interview. You've been amazing.
Thank you.
What's planned for the rest of the Indian visit?
Oh boy, we're going tomorrow night we're going to do an event in Mumbai here. Then we're going to Kochi and we're going to do an event there. And then 2 or 3 events in Delhi and then back home for the holidays for me.
Lovely. Jeff, thank you so much for spending time with us this afternoon.
Well, thank you.
It's an incredible chat. We've got lots and lots of nuggets for the kids and for the parents.
Great.
So thank you, and I've got a lot of tips from an accomplished New York Times best-selling author who's jumping on his kid's bed to an amateur author.
That's right.
So thank you.
Thank you
so
for your
much.
thoughtful questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.